Hello, my name is Lohr. I teach AP Physics, Physics, and Wilderness Survival at Rochester Adams, as well as serve as the head coach of the cross-country team and the track and field team. Going into my senior year of high school, I knew that I wanted to go into education. And it was that year that I took my first physics course and fell in love with the topic. I've taught water safety instruction. I'm a certified scuba instructor, and that just kind of naturally rolled right into education. Within 6 months of graduating from Eastern Michigan, I was hired by Rochester Adams, and this year will begin my 17th year of teaching for Rochester Adams. The role that I am allowed to play in your students' lives is a role that I do not take lightly. I'm very proud to hopefully serve as another trusted adult in your students' lives. And the way things are going this year, I think they could probably use all of the support they can get, and that's my role here, in addition to teaching them whatever material it is that we're trying to cover. So before we begin anything, I'd just like to make sure that you and your student is aware that I am here for any needs that you might have, being that we have so much uncertainty as we go through everything this year. The best way to contact me would be through my email, elohre@rochester.k12.mi.us. And with all the different platforms and programs that we're using nowadays, I get flooded with alerts and everything else. So I deeply apologize if I miss an email from you. Please don't hesitate to email me if you think I've missed it or forgotten it, because it is certainly possible that in the avalanche of emails we get every day, as I'm sure you are aware, that I may have missed something. Usually when we are in the building, I teach across the hall from my lovely wife, who teaches life sciences, including pathology and AP biology. Starting off remotely, instead of her being across the hall, she's in the office, one office over, so we get to spend the day together. We have 2 children who are at Delta Kelly currently. My son is a 2nd grader who has Mrs. Baroni, who I think has been between Musson Elementary and Delta Kelly, and then my daughter's a 4th grader, and she currently has Mrs. Monroe. So far, their remote learning experience has been a positive one, and I hope that I am able to make the learning experience remote version for your student a positive one as well. The physics classes across Rochester Community Schools all use the same teaching method that is commonly referred to as modeling. Modeling is essentially starting every chapter off with a lab, looking at how the variables relate to each other, graphing and analyzing the data, and actually deriving the physics equations that one would typically find in a book. If in your previous physics class back in high school or college, if your teacher or professor just kind of defined the topics, gave you an equation and took it from there, that's pretty common how things used to be done. But what we do is we flip it around and we do the opposite. We do the lab first. We find out the relationship, and we derive the equations that one would find in a physics textbook. And so the goal and the hope is that the students, number one, realize what they are able to accomplish and how they can derive some pretty complicated looking equations, and it allows them to kind of formulate their own questions as they go along and trying to determine how things are related. The class is an algebra-based class. We do use a little bit of trigonometry when we get into 2-dimensional motion. So as long as they know their sines, cosines, and tangents, that's all they're going to need, along with some algebra skills. Any extra assistance that they might need because of just maybe their math skills, maybe they don't have the confidence in their math skills, by all means they can talk to me, email me. Every Wednesday, I intend on having an optional Zoom meeting outside of our normal class hours, so they can drop in any Wednesday and ask questions as well. Those Wednesday times will vary from week to week, but on during our Monday class, they'll be informed at what time it's going to be. Typically, it'll be 9 a.m. or 11 a.m. on a Wednesday, and those hours might fluctuate back and forth with my other classes. We will do mechanics during the first semester, and if with luck we will be getting into E&M during that second semester. The question is, how much will we get in based on how much we're slow due to remote learning. So mechanics first semester, that's the big stuff, moving, gravity, things like that, projectiles, forces, and then we're going to get into electricity and magnetism during the second semester. And that leads us into optics, sound, and light, and that will end our year. At the end of this particular physics course, they will be prepared and ready to take my AP Physics C course. It's a calculus-based physics class in which we do mechanics during first semester and electricity and magnetism during the second semester. So they will be prepared for that. The suggested level of math for a student going into AP Physics C would be that they are currently in, or that they are in calculus while they are taking the physics class. So if they're in pre-calculus now, they're on the perfect track. If they're ahead of time, or if they're ahead in the schedule, then they're even better. I have had students that were enrolled in pre-calculus while taking AP Physics perform very well for the test and in the class. So that's not a deal breaker as long as we see some real strong physics understanding and we can work through any limitations in our math. As far as calculators go in our class, we will be using our calculators quite often, and they, for me, can use any calculating device they want during any homework or lab sessions. However, when it is time to take a quiz or a test, they will not be allowed to use their phone. So it's always been my strong suggestion to the students, practice using whatever calculator it is you use, whether it's a graphing calculator, a scientific calculator. They're going to want to have sine, cosine, tangent, as well as a square root function on there. Anything beyond that will just be extra. So again, it can be a graphing calculator, a scientific calculator, and they may use their phones, but when it comes time to a test, they can't. So I always say you should be practicing with the instrument that you're going to be testing with, so that you know about the keystrokes, you know about the sticky number 7 button that you got to push extra hard, or whatever it may be. So they should get in the habit of using those calculators, and we'll be using those pretty much every class period that we have. Every day for your student Zoom meeting, they should have a sheet of paper, a pencil, along with their calculator around, so we can do problems and graphing, and we can do that quickly as you transition from one section to another. I will be utilizing the breakout room option for Zoom quite often, and what that does is it basically puts the students into small groups of 3 or 4. And it's my prediction that the students are going to be much more apt to discuss, talk, be outgoing when they're in a small little group of 3 or 4, rather than have to unmute themselves amongst 30 different videos going on, 30 different sets of eyes. And so I can jump and bounce around from room to room, group to group, if you will, so I can offer up any assistance that they might have. It lets them have social conversation, it lets them discuss the content that they're looking at, the assignment that they're working on, and so we'll be doing those quite often, so that so they can just feel more comfortable having conversation with their classmates. Now, in their physics class, your students will have homework to complete outside of our designated class periods, both during remote learning and in person. However, I don't like assigning great quantities because I know that they've got 5 other classes that they have to be working on as well, and I know that if I assign a large quantity, I'm not going to get their best work as they try to rush through it. So I try to give smaller amounts, but I make sure that what I'm giving them is what I would consider quality. So it might be something as simple as finishing a lab. It might be something like continuing an assignment that's going to take a week or so. We'll discuss the online homework system here in just a moment, and it's something that they will work on little bits at a time as the day goes on, as the week, I should say, goes on. So they will have homework, but I don't anticipate that it's going to be a lot of homework. Just little bits of time each night should be enough to keep them caught up. Under normal circumstances, I always tell the students 20 minutes per night, 5 school nights out of the week is all they need to do to keep up with the class and to perform at their best. So if that's a habit they want to get into, I have had students that didn't do their 20 minutes and then they let it kind of build up, and now they have an hour of homework and they say, Mr. Lohr, you promised us only 20 minutes. Well, 20 minutes started on Monday and then on Tuesday and then on Wednesday. You should be giving me little bits of time each day. And if they're doing that, it should never become overwhelming. Doing those little bits of homework kind of alerts the student as to what their shortcomings might be or where they are struggling in this class, so they can ask questions right away rather than wait for it to build up until it becomes insurmountable. So they should be doing little bits of physics every day. And I'm going to obviously have that modified during this remote session just because it's kind of just a bizarre setup and we're still trying to get used to it. So, but make sure that you can ask your students if they're working on their physics just little bits at a time, and that will be enough. So obviously, to start off our year, we are relying heavily on our computers and on the internet. So what I'd like to do is talk about your class and discuss the different programs and apps and platforms that we will be using. And I understand that there's a lot of classes and a lot of platforms out there, so I do try my best to try to streamline and consolidate as much as possible so that your student doesn't have to memorize 15 different logins and 15 different websites. So that is my goal. So let's begin. And if you have any questions, please email me as often as you would like. And the computer's always on at the house, so it's usually a constant update, so I should be able to respond rather quickly. So first and foremost, we'll be using Google Classroom this year. Every class is supposed to be using the same platform. So here's our physics page. We have the stream, which is where I post Zoom links, which is the same every time. If I have any videos recorded from our Zoom meetings, I'll post them right there. We've got our upcoming our upcoming due dates here, which is very convenient. And so if I were to go to classwork, what I have here is class information, kinematics, the stuff, the higher up on the list it's going to go. Anything that has a little bookmark on it is not anything that is assigned. It's simply information, whether it is a class procedure, a syllabus, whether it is something involving text suggestions. So you'll find that anything with a clipboard is something that requires action. Some action, such as lab number 1, is done right here on Google Classroom and submitted and graded through Google Classroom. Others, such as UT01, simply says you don't need to turn it in here, you're going to turn it into the UT Quest program, which we'll talk about shortly. Before I leave Google Classroom, the one thing I want to point out down here is text suggestions. If the family computer is acceptable, graphical analysis 4, you can click on this, and what that's going to do is that's going to take you to a page where you can download a program that is going to give you something like this, a very nice graphing system. I can make physics columns like time and position. I get real nice looking graphs. It's very quick, very easy. I can add columns in by doing some calculations. I can quickly change what I'm looking at. Our goal in physics is to get to a straight line and apply some slope equations. So if we can put that on the family computer, that would be great. If not, I understand we can always do our analysis with things like Excel spreadsheets, and I can go through that with the students on how how to use that if they don't want to use this program here. Last, I want to look at the online program. This right here is our UTexas online program that we use. They've used this before for physical science and chemistry most likely. This is the student view. Any class I have is going to be shown. So if I have chemistry or physics, it's all going to be here. I have my due dates over here. So I've got one that's due on the 14th at 10 o'clock. And so when I click on this, what your students should be doing is going to the list here. We only have one. Once we have 2, 3, and 4, everything stays here, even if the due date has come and gone. This will be our list of assignments. I'm on 01 Introduction. Once I open this, what I'm going to see is a PDF of my own personal assignment. Every student has the same questions with different numbers. They can work together, they can talk to each other, discuss how to do it. That's highly encouraged. They don't have to print this off. Especially if you don't have a printer at home, I understand. But if you can print that off, or if you just have your sheet of paper handy, the students should be doing pencil, paper, and calculator for all of these. It shouldn't just be in their head. It shouldn't just be reading, calculating, and trying answers. Because if it's not working, I can't help them because I can't see what they've done. They can't see what they've done. So they should be doing this on a sheet of paper, whether it's a printed version or whether they are reading the question and writing it down on a separate sheet of paper. All of these scores for UT assignments should be in the high 80s or higher. The reason for that is shown right here. Question number 1, I didn't do it and I got 0 out of 10. Any low scores means I'm going to have some blanks. The 2 out of 7 tells me I've tried it twice and those are the bad answers that I've tried. If I try one of those answers again, I don't get it wrong another time, I'm told, hey, you already tried number 7, the answer 7, it didn't work, you still have, you still got 5 more tries. So when I'm ready, I can hit submit. Number 2, I got it right on the first try. 1 try out of 7, I get 10 points. Question number 3, I got it right on the second try, 9.3. Number 4, I got it right on the third try, 8.7 points. What I'm showing you here is that your student can get every single question wrong twice. Get it right on the third try, they're still going to get an 87%. If they get everything wrong once and then get it right the second time, they get a 93. So any scores that are below 85 means they're getting a huge number of these wrong multiple times, or probably they're just not completing it on time. That's a time management issue that they can work on. If they don't finish an assignment on time, they may request that I reopen it. Once they are finished, any time of the semester, I will reopen it for them. They can finish the assignment. I sometimes misspeak and say they can make it up. They're not making it up. They're just finishing what they haven't already finished, and they'll get a majority of those points back. There will be a slight late fee, a slight point deduction because of its lateness, but they will still earn a vast majority of those points. So if they aren't getting high 80s and above, they just need to make sure that they are getting this thing done on time, better than what they had, because they were clearly not finishing it. So this is an assignment. These typically last 1 week, maybe 2 weeks. They get 1 per chapter in physics, and it's something they should be working on slowly, little bits of time. If they can't do one of them yet, it's because we haven't talked about that concept yet, and we'll get to that. So we did our Google Classroom. We looked at one last thing that I forgot. Let's take a look at this one last one here. This is Edmodo. This is not required. This is my own, this is the platform that I was using before we went into the pandemic and we all switched over to Google Classroom. I click on physics, it's edmodo.com. Anyone can make a login, parents included. Anyone can type in this class code, and that person will be in my class forever. Why would you want to go here? Because this folders right here has everything that I am going to be using all year long. I will slowly be transferring it over to the Google Classroom, so you don't have to be on here, but it's here. Things that I don't use anymore but are still good resources, they're going to be here. Answer keys, you name it, it's on here. So if I click on chapter, it's not chapter 10, but if I choose on folder 10, Uniform motion. What do I have? I've got introductions, I've got tutorials, I've got notes, I've got PDFs, I've got answer keys, I've got everything you could want all in one place. So it's a good resource to have. Everybody is encouraged to join, even parents if you like. I never kick anyone out. I probably have 500 people in the class because I started this that long ago. So there's your class code right there, and that will get you into Edmodo. So highly recommended. So we've got our Edmodo, which is a great resource to use. UTexas is how we're going to get a lot of our grading done and a lot of our assignments. And then of course we have our Google Classroom where everything will be housed. And if you, like I said, are willing, the graphical analysis program is a great one to get. Well, thank you for your time. And if there are any questions you have, please feel free to email me anytime. And I'm looking forward to a great school year, even though it's remote. I was very excited to get back in the classroom and see all the students and get a chance to interact. And I look forward to having some face-to-face, in-person time with them sooner rather than later. So I wish you and your student a wonderful beginning to our school year, and hopefully we return to some normalcy before the school year is done. So take care.